just over a week remaining of this January transfer window, and no surprises, West Ham are still making an absolute mess of it. Before I talk about this though, just a reminder, if you can subscribe to my channel and drop a like on the video. It's still very early days in this channel, so any help would be much appreciated. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to talk about West Ham, obviously, and talk about David Sullivan and the mess that is this January transfer window. We're hearing a lot of reports, a lot of news coming out over the last few days about different players who we've been linked to, about David Sullivan blaming Nuno, all this stuff that I wanted to go into. Now, the first question I would ask is, right now, as we sit on the 21st of January, are we any better in terms of our squad? Is our squad any better than it was at the start of this January transfer window? I would argue marginally. And that's probably the main reason is because Tati gives us a different option up front. With his mobility, with his work rate, he has been an okay signing. He's obviously got his first goal, albeit against QPR in the FA Cup. He obviously missed a big chance against Tottenham on Saturday, but the fact that we've got into that position is kind of reassuring in a sense. But I do think he gives us something that we've been lacking for a while in terms of a striker that works hard, can run, which seemed to not be the case with a lot of strikers that we've signed. And I think he's slightly improved us in that position. He's given us something different. Pablo, I'm not too sure about. I watched the YouTube clips when we were first linked with him. I got up the old YouTube and had a look at some of his highlights. And immediately I could tell within the first minute of that video that he's going to be slow. He's going to be lethargic. Will he cope with the pace of the Premier League? I'm not too sure. Now, I don't want to write a player off. He's only obviously had a few appearances in a West Ham shirt, and I really hope I'm wrong. I hope that the guy does really well for us and turns out to be a really shrewd, good signing that, you know, turns into a real proper striker in the Premier League. I just don't see it. I really don't see it on this one. I think we've signed him based off his goal record this season. His goal record the season before was terrible. His goal record this season is very good, but I'm never sure when we sign strikers based off their goal records in different leagues. Let's say, face it, leagues that are not as competitive, not as strong as the Premier League. So it sort of means nothing. Obviously, if you can score goals, that's a good thing, right? If you're a striker and you can score goals, that's a good thing. But there's other criteria that need to be met for a striker coming to the Premier League. A big part of that is pace and mobility, getting about the pitch, giving your team a different option, particularly if you're a counter-attacking team. And Pablo just does not do that. So I've definitely got concerns with him. We've let a few players go. Luis Guilherme, who obviously never really got his chance. He did have a few sub-appearances. Would he ever have been good enough? I don't know. We can't really answer that. I suppose we'll see in the next few years what happens to him in his career. But it's a shame that he went, because I did think there was something there. I don't think he was always played in the right position. And I think he probably should have got more of a chance. But he's gone. Andy Irvin's gone. He didn't get much of a chance either. Whether he was ever good enough for a Premier League football, I'm not too sure. But is the squad any stronger? Like I say, maybe slightly. And yet, this was the pivotal window. This was our last remaining chance of staying in the Premier League. I remember a lot of West Ham fans talking about this at the back end of 2025. And it was saying if we can stay in touch with by the time we get to the January transfer window, then we've got a chance. Then we've got a chance to go out, get a centre back, get a striker, get a winger, maybe get another central midfielder, and really kick on from there and start picking up results. And all we've done so far is sign two strikers, one of which I think has been a good signing, one of which not great. And by the way, those two signings, 50 million quid spent on those. Like I say, I think Tati's a decent signing. I'm not sure about 29 million worth though. And we still are, like I say, just over a week to go this transfer window, and we haven't got a centre-half. Now, whose fault is that? David Sullivan would like to tell you and let you believe that it's Nuno. It's Nuno dithering. But I would argue that, one, you are Nuno's boss, so you literally can do what you want, and you have done what you want over this transfer window and the many before. And two, why isn't it down to Nuno's choice? We are still being run like a club in the sort of mid-2000s where you didn't have a lot of staff moving within the backroom of a football club. You had the owner and maybe a chairman would speak to the manager. The manager was very much that, a manager, not a head coach. and they would pick players and they would go after them and they'd sign them. It's so different now. Other clubs in the Premier League are working on a completely different level from West Ham, and we are stuck in the mid-2000s, and until we change that, it is not going to get better. It really isn't going to get better, particularly over the long term. Maybe we'll sign the odd player that works in the short term, but the proof is in the pudding. We have had this ownership now for 15 years. What percentage would you give them in terms of success rate for players coming in? I would say 20%, if I'm being kind. You look at other clubs, you look at the big clubs in terms of Aston Villa and Newcastle that we should be aspiring to be towards. What's their success rate? 60, 70%? You look at the likes of Brighton, Brentford, what's their 70, 80% that they get right, the odd one they don't get right? They're just working on different levels to West Ham, and until we bring that percentage up, we are going to continue to be in the mess that we are in, and that is why we are in that mess. It is recruitment. Make no mistake about it. There's obviously a lot of different other things going on around the club. Just the fact that the way that we're run as a club by the owners and the board, the stadium, all those issues there. But recruitment is why we are in the bottom three of the Premier League. Recruitment of managers and recruitment of players. And we're just not learning from those mistakes. David Sullivan is just not interested excuse me, in learning from his mistakes. And that is why there needs to be a change. We all know that. We all say that. But it's just so frustrating that he will not see the mistakes that he's made so far. And he wouldn't even see them as mistakes. He would see them as mistakes from other people. Again, it's always a blame game with David Sullivan. It's Nuno's fault. It's Graham Potter's fault. It's Lopetegui's fault. Oh, it's Tim Steight's fault. Look what happened when I employed a technical director. Look at what a mess it was. He's just not interested in taking any accountability or responsibility for his actions and for where we are in. And that is a massive problem. And it's not going to get fixed until he, at the very least, identifies that he is the problem, which I can't see happening. So we have, like I say, a matter of days left to go of this transfer window. For my money, we still need a winger and a centre-back at the very least. Like I say, David Sullivan will tell you that it's Nuno dithering. But I would say just the ownership and the running of this club, the transfer policy, the setup that we have is just so dated. And until we bring things up to speed of clubs like Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, we're just not going to get it right. It's a stab in the dark. I mean, you look at January transfers in general across all clubs. It's hard to get it right. January is a hard window to buy in, and it's hard to get players that are going to come in and hit the ground running. But the only assurances you can take are signing players that know the Premier League. We've signed 2 players that have never played in the Premier League before. Signing experience when you need it. We haven't signed any experienced players so far. So you really do wonder that, going in through December and the difficult period of results that we had, what conversations were they having at this football club? What were they saying to each other to get us out in this crucial January period that was going to save us from relegation? What were they saying? What was their strategy to go out and actually improve this team? Because it's clearly not worked. It's still a scattergun approach. We're still being linked with players left, right and centre. We're imminently going to sign a present, which in itself is just a complete disaster and an absolute joke. Sam Allardyce, and this is not new. Sam Allardyce talked about this in the early in the early stages of this ownership, where they would talk about players that Sam Allardyce wanted, and then David Sullivan would go and sign someone completely different out of nowhere that he's just taken a punt on, that he's been recommended by an agent. It is just so backwards and absolutely nonsense. And this player that Real Madrid, he might end up being a good player. He might do, but it's just a stab in the dark. If he does, it's luck. And this is my point. Anything that's worked for David Sullivan so far, even the Callum Wilson one, is just luck. It's just luck. And it's just the fact that even a broken clock is right twice a day. You're going to get the odd one right. Just through law of averages, but nothing else. And and this Real Madrid is not even deemed ready for the first team. why are we signing him then? If everything was right, if we had all our ducks in a row, and that we'd signed a centre-back, we'd signed a winger, we'd signed a striker, maybe 2 strikers, and we were in a really good position and the squad was looking a lot healthier, then go and throw £1 million at this kid that might be good if he's been recommended to you. And only if then he's been recommended by recruitment analysts and scouts that have done the digging. They've looked at this player for over a period of time and said, we're seeing things that maybe other clubs are not seeing, other scouts are not seeing. We actually think there's a decent chance this player will be a good player and it's worth a little bit of a punt. Not this agent goes, yeah, let's sign this player, and then David Sullivan goes on YouTube, goes, yeah, he looks good, I'll take a bit of a punt. It's such a dated system, and I'm not saying anything new. All West Ham fans are aware of this, are frustrated by this, and it just seems like it will never change. But let's see what the remainder of the window has for us. Like I say, we desperately need a centre-half. We desperately need a winger. I think with the winger position, it's quite an easy one. We just need someone, ideally with Premier League experience, but even if they don't, someone that can sit on the bench straight away, is fit, ready to go, and has pace and can move and can be dangerous on the counter-attack. That is sort of the remit of this player. That is what they need to come in and be able to do. That's not a lot. That is really not a lot when you think about it. Somerville's upturn of form has massively helped us, and now we just need someone that's going to come in and just battle with him and just, so we can bring Somerville off in a game. We can bring Jared Bowen off in a game if they're tired. We just don't have anyone. You look at the bench against Tottenham on Saturday, we don't have any attacking options other than Callum Wilson, and we were trying to get rid of him. It's just so obvious that the squad is still imbalanced. We still have a lack of options off the bench, and we still have a massive lack of leadership at the back. We were linked with the likes of Pinnock, Eric Dyer, still don't seem to be any further along, and now it's coming out that David Sullivan is saying, Nuno's dithering. He can't choose which centre-back he wants. It shouldn't be down to Nuno. We've seen over the years that letting managers choose their own players is not the best way to do things. The owner choosing players is not the best way to do things. You need someone to come in as a sporting director, technical director, whatever you want to call them, director of football, or even a CEO at a top level, and have a vision for this club and have a vision for how we should be playing as a team and the sort of players that we need to bring in to make that happen. And then you start working at that, and then you start building a recruitment team, a scouting team, a network, and then that's when you start choosing players. And then you pick a head coach to fit that model. Or the alternative approach is you get a manager that is so good, and it's so good, that he comes in and you trust everything he says, and he manages. He's not a head coach, he's a manager, and it has final say of transfers. But we've not seen a manager come in that's good enough for that yet, and we've not had a manager that's good enough for that for a while. So what are we doing? We're not doing anything, are we? It's just an absolute mess, and I don't see it getting any better. So whoever we sign for the remainder of this window, it's just going to be either a George Mendes player, in Nuno's agent, is going to be a David Sullivan present, or is going to be someone that we have just accumulated reports on over the years and just now fancy a punt on. It's just not going to be a strategic move that this is the player that's going to help us get out of this mess, because that is what we need. The time for signing 18-year-old wonder kids, it was before. That was when we finished 6th and 7th and even 10th. I think it was 10th we finished on. No, it was 9th that we finished David Moyes' last season. That was the time to go, bang, right. Now we start buying players for the future. That's not the time now. We need players that are going to come in and hit the ground running. And so far we've signed 2 players that have never played in the Premier League before. It is absolutely crazy. Anyway, just wanted to rant a little bit, to be honest, and air my frustration with the ownership, because I'm just seeing more and more reports that just make me scratch my head and just think, what are we doing? It is unbelievable that a man like David Sullivan cannot see what is going wrong at this football club. Anyway, be interested to hear your thoughts on it. Interested to hear your thoughts on who we've been linked to recently, who you'd like to see at the remainder of the window, and let's see how the last few days go. I'm assuming we will be busy. I'm assuming there will be at least 2 players coming in. So let's see who those 2 players are. As a reminder, if you can subscribe to my channel, that would be much appreciated. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.